Alright, so here I've loaded this into Dogwaffle. Actually, let's just redo that from scratch so we get a good idea of how that's done. We're going to load an image, actually not an image, let's go to the animation menu and load an AVI file. And that AVI file is going to be one of those Dog5 that I rendered in Carrara. Actually, I got a version here which is kind of the final, a little bit cropped. The very original I had here. This one here doesn't have a lag, as the file might indicate. It's actually the codec Lagarith, which I like because it's lossless. It's not as compressed a file as if it were something like XDiv or DivX, but XVid, but it's still very good compression, and it is lossless, so that might be really the compression to use if while you're still working with it. Anyway, if I'm grabbing the original that I had here, it's a little bit larger, and let's do a couple of things first before we talk about slowing this down, because right now we have this animation of 120 frames, and let's say we already see that that's not the whole spin we want. First of all, we want it at 30 frames a second, so we click on FPS right over here. I think you probably have that here under the animation menu also, frame rate. There you go, and let's force that to 30, right? And at that point, you might want to go quickly save that in a format which is not going to ask you codecs and compression choices and stuff. So we have a save option in the animation menu right there, and that one is going to go in the same folder, and I'm going to call this number 1. And it'll be in a .dwa file. That's the Dogwaffle animation. It's a quick memory dump. It goes, if you have fast hard drives, it goes really quick, and it's even faster to read it back. It seems like it's caching some of it. Highly recommended if you're working with this file again and again, and also if you're going to use it maybe as a displacement map against another animation. But anyway, let's go here and identify a couple of things we want to do before we start really slowing this down. One thing we want to do is perhaps have it start not from this angle but from about here. So we have a couple of frames initially that we don't need. And what you could do here is grab this middle vertical bar, and so you see a number of frames here that we don't need. So you can mark this one here as an in pointer, in marker, and you can go forward perhaps to about this much, or even further. Maybe we say to this one, right? Now where that frame is, we can scrub through until we see it. There it is, yellow highlight. Click that and mark it as the out, and so everything between the two in and out marked frames will be highlighted in blue. And what you do next is you delete that. So what you do here is you go right there and select under frames, no, right there, delete block. There you go. You can also cut it, but that will keep a copy of it on the drive so that you could paste it somewhere else. We don't want that. In this case, we'll just delete it. So that will go a little bit faster. Alright, let's go do that again for the first for the end of the animation. So right now we have this beautiful continent, Africa, showing here on the first frame, and we're gonna go. Maybe we want to keep about half of the total frame count we had initially, 120. We're down now to how many here? We go to the last frame. We see frame number 87, and so that tells us we have 88 frames. And I'm gonna go to about the middle and set that as the in marker. We don't actually have to see it, but it's good to see it nonetheless here, and see Africa disappear into the night, and mark that as the in, and then go all the way to the very end, and we have the out marker right there. And again, we have that selection that way, and we'll just right click here and delete the block. Right. So now that we have a shorter animation of just about, let's see how many frames, 51, total of 51 frames. So the last one is number 50 out of 51. What we'll do now is we'll save that again. Alright, so let's go to animation and save, and this one maybe we'll call it number 2. Alright, so that's a quick memory save, and that's saved on drive. Alright, so the next thing is to perhaps crop a little bit here. We're not going to need the bottom half of the globe, so we're told, right? I mean, we did all this work to animate this, and now the boss comes in, or the customers changes their mind, and they say, no, we don't need this on DVD, we're going to put this on a website. And we have only this little much room for it, and you don't have the time to go re-render that in your 3D program, especially because maybe this took 2 hours to render, and now they're telling you they need about 5 times that much duration. They need to spin slowly, and it's going to be a 15-second animation instead of just 3 or 4 seconds. So you know, if you were to re-render that, it would take you 5 times as long. It would take you, you know, perhaps even a day or 2 to render, depending on the visual realism you're putting in there. And you notice I don't have any stars in the background. That's something we might do in post later on. Since we have a circle here, we could mask that off with an alpha selection mask and then just put some stars in there, or some other nebula and other starry background skies in there later on in Dogwaffle as well. So what we want to do though here is crop this a little bit. So let's use the rectangular selection tool, and we're going to keep the upper edge and perhaps all the way here, but we're going to come close along the left side of the globe, and we're going to come and keep the right side a little bit more open, like so. Okay, so let's go crop to that. Now you might think, well, that's going to crop just this image. No, it's actually cropping the entire frame sequence we have in the animation. So all the menus, all the options you see here in the image menu, like resample, resizing, all of these things, there you can apply them over the entire frame sequence of the animation as well. So I'm going to go here with crop to selection, and that will take a bit of number crunching and memory reallocation, and there we go. So now I might also want to make this smaller. Maybe this is not the size that I want it at, and in fact one thing I'm told is that I'm going to need much more black space on the right side. So I'm going to probably need to resample that at some point, make it smaller, and then expand it to the right side with some more black background color. So the idea here is that we want to resample that. Let's go there. And again, this is something that will affect not just this frame, but the entire frame sequence. And I'm sorry about this background noise. My cat is scratching her nails. Hey! Little intermezzo here. Let's go back to this here. So I'm going to constrain the aspect ratio and say we need this at 640. And then 374, why not? Let's keep it like that and resample. Alright, so let's make sure we clear the selection if it produced anything on the edges. And now one more thing we could do at that point is to add a little bit of black space on the right side. For that, we're not going to resample, we're going to say change the image size. Right, now the way this works is that right now you're in the middle of the outline around it that we could add to. And so what I'll do is I'll say, no, let's keep this in the lower left corner. And then we can build up a little bit towards the upper side and to the right side. And in fact, the total width right now is 640. Let's say we want 800. So that will add 160 along on the right side. And then here on the height, we could add a little bit as well. It's not going to resample, it's not going to stretch it, it's not going to squeeze it. So it's just going to add some white space or black space, one or the other side. And you notice, by the way, I didn't pay attention to what's the background color. And it is actually white. The primary color is black, the secondary color is white. What's going to happen is that we're going to add a white band around it. Not what I want in the end, so I might want to actually change that and change the colors first, so I have black as the background, or I can fix that later. And of course, it's not a trivial thing to do, because we're talking not just this one frame, we're talking doing this on every single frame, but it is possible to do so. So I'll show you how to do that as well. If it were done the very quick way, I would say, hey, let's just click here to switch it so the black color is background, and then we could go and change the image size like so. Over here we said 800, right? And then what was that about? Well, let's go to 512. Let's keep it a little bit more vertically as well. And there you go. So now we have more space on the right and a little bit up. Not just on this frame, but on the entire frame sequence it added that. Alright, let's have a look now at the other way to do that.